This is the type of photograph I have never taken on film, so I don't know what to expect. It'll be interesting to find out. But what I've got is a grove of redwood trees, and it's facing towards the west, and it's backlit by the setting sun. So I've got this orange sun that's going down behind the scene, and it's backlighting all these trees, and it's sending shafts of light through as it, different parts of the canopy let light through. And I've been sitting here watching it go down, and it's really dynamic in the sense that it's changing quite a bit as the sun goes down. It's a random pattern. Certain things light up at certain times, and I get more of kind of a sunburst as opposed to just a single shaft or two. So yeah, it looked really cool, and I set it up, and I thought maybe I'd try shooting it. The thing is, the dynamic range is through the roof. So I'm shooting Kodak Ektar color negative film, and I've set this up with my 90mm Nikon f4.5 lens. I'm shooting it at f32, and I've metered for the foreground, and I'm completely ignoring the patches of sky in the background plus the sun where it's breaking through the trees. That's going to go overexposed. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm doing it intentional, so it's going to be pretty much black on the film when I get it back, I'm sure. We'll see how it turns out. I hope it isn't too distracting. I hope you can actually see the shafts of light that are coming through, because it looked really cool. One of the shots I took was more of a starburst pattern, so I'm really hoping that turns out. So the thing is, it's really dark in here except for all that bright backlight, and it was really hard to meter. So the tree trunks aren't really they're a little darker than a middle gray. They're probably 2 stops below that. But when I put my spot meter up on these tree trunks to take a reading, it just registered 0 EV, which is not helpful. So I actually metered off the ferns that are in the foreground instead. And the green tones typically seem like they land somewhere around middle gray, but I put them a stop below that because I thought that was just it is darker in here. It isn't quite middle gray, or middle green, I should say. That gave me a meter reading of 30 seconds. And Kodak Ektar 100, adding reciprocity adjustments, that gave me an exposure time of 1 minute, 8 seconds. So that's what I shot. What I'm hoping happens here is that the tree trunks and all the foreground is exposed correctly. And then the sky can just do whatever the sky does on the film. And if it wrecks the photograph, it wrecks it. But hopefully it turns out interesting, or ideally it'll turn out as a good photograph. So prior to that shot, I did have one sheet that I exposed before that. The light was just great. I had really nice starburst pattern going on through the trees. So I went ahead and just rushed and grabbed a film holder and shot it. Took a quick meter reading, and actually I shot that at 30 seconds total without reciprocity adjustments. But it was brighter before the sun went down a little bit lower on the horizon. So I did have about an extra stop of light. So still hoping that was a correct exposure, because I didn't actually realize how much I needed to add for reciprocity, but then I realized I was actually metering too bright. So I think I got it right. So hopefully Ektar does right by me and helps me out here. And if not, then I guess we're gonna have a crap photo. But hey, that's how you learn. It was a fun scene to shoot regardless of how it turns out. And if it turns out like crap, then I'll probably learn more than if it turns out great. But I'm hoping it turns out great.
Now, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I thought for sure this one would be a train wreck. It's the first time I'd actually shot directly into the sun with the film camera. Of course, it's filtered in through the trees, but there's a sunburst right here. And to my surprise, it actually captured pretty well, I thought. Of course, the sky in the background is pretty hot. It's going to be really bright. I knew it was going to be that way at the time. And the starburst, of course, is going to be pretty much pure white. Because why wouldn't it be? It's really bright, so it makes sense, and I think that's okay from an exposure standpoint. All of the detail in the foreground, though, I was really impressed with, because I think all the shadow detail captured really well. So I kind of feel like this was a win, because all of the tree trunk details there in the bark, you can see all the foliage. So I think it was the best I could do with this scene, and actually I thought it turned out pretty well. Now, I'd also been concerned because I didn't bother trying to capture the foreground. I didn't tilt, the front standard or anything to try to get that in focus, but actually the depth of field's good on it. Everything's pretty sharp. Now, the second exposure didn't get, so the sun had moved behind one of the tree trunks. I didn't quite get that starburst. but I do still have the shafts of light coming through the trees, which is pretty cool. I kind of feel like I'm going to lean towards this one, but who knows? I might invert it and find out that I like the other one better. I'm not sure yet. So anyway, kind of a fun experiment. It kind of gives me more confidence to shoot these types of photographs now because I know that it'll turn out okay. Not exactly sure I'm going to make a habit out of shooting directly into the sun like that, but in contexts like this, it kind of made sense. So yeah, let me know what you think.
So as the sun's gone down, it's gotten a lot more orange, a lot more colorful. And it's really pretty, except I haven't had the same light rays that I had coming through the forest like I did before. So I haven't shot any more shots because I think I've seen the best of it. Actual sunset is in about 15 to 20 minutes. Then it's going to start getting dark. And where I'm at, it's going to take me a bit to get out of here, especially with the heavy pack. I got to climb uphill. Well, it is another new day, and I am in the same grove of trees that I was at last night where I finished the night off. I was on my way to somewhere else, and then I stopped because it occurred to me that maybe I want to see this in the morning light when the sun's coming in from the other direction. There's fire smoke on the sky and the horizon, so it's turned the sunlight orange. You can see it on my face right there. It's just kind of putting these orange bands of light into the trees. I thought maybe it might be interesting to see how it's doing. Thing is, it's only catching the very tops of the trees. Down here below the canopy is pretty dark still. And then the trail kind of goes up in elevation. It climbs for a bit and then drops down into like some kind of like a little ravine or gulch area. So I'm sure it'll all be just in complete shade, which may be a good thing because yesterday I was having a hard time lining up compositions that didn't have either harsh light in them or some sort of thing that would blow out in the frame or something like that, which is kind of why I settled on what I had, where I just kind of went for a starburst. So when I saw the forecast for this area about a week or two ago, I was kind of excited because they were showing cooler temps, but when it's hot inland like that and cooler on the coast, the warm air meets the cold air and causes it to condense. That's a combination that turns into fog. So I was really excited thinking maybe I'd get here and there'd be a whole bunch of fog every day, which would be great because it helps you kind of isolate your subjects so that it isn't just so much green and so much chaos, but it adds separation to the background. However, I get to see any fog. And that's totally fine. I just kind of got myself worked up and got my hopes up. So, unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed on that. So I haven't seen any fog at all yet this trip. Previous trips to the Redwoods, I did. So who knows? I got a couple days yet. Maybe I'll luck out. Maybe I'll get something. But anyway, I thought it'd be good to see this particular grove in shade. So I'm hiking back up here to check it out. And then depending on what we'll find, we'll either set up on something or I'll go move on to my next location. Next location I got, I'm pretty excited for. So. I did find something and I set the camera up on it, and as I was making all my camera adjustments, I realized it just wasn't gonna work. So I ended up breaking down and forgetting about it. I think it seems like most photographs have got some sort of compromise in it that you have to make, you know, because if you didn't have to compromise, then every photo I take would have, you know, a castle and fairy tale forest and unicorns and a dragon in it. But I think it's somewhere around about the second or third concession I make on a photograph where I start to think maybe I'm forcing this. And that's what happened to me there. So I just kind of felt like this this is a great location, and I think it's got a lot of potential to it, and I really want to photograph from here. So a nice view, vista view of the trees themselves, you know, and get the trees to line up in some kind of pleasing way. But I wasn't finding that so much. But I did find something that was pretty close, but it had the footpath in it, which I didn't really particularly like. But I was trying to use it as like a swoop, like kind of like a sweeping lead-in line kind of thing. But then by the time I got the camera set up, now it was a lot brighter, so now I had sky poking out a lot and hot spots in it, and I was trying to shoot color slide film. Yeah. So then I tried to change lenses down to a more narrow view to kind of just include some of that, and yeah. About the time I got it to where it seemed like it would work technically, it kind of butchered it so bad that I didn't want to shoot it anymore. So that happened. So maybe I can't get my tree shot that I was after in this location, but I'm still kind of looking for like smaller, tight scenes I can shoot. I don't feel like I've done anything so far that kind of captures the feeling of being here. That was kind of what I was hoping to do. Yeah, these little tighter compositions I think are still pretty well worth shooting, and I enjoy them, so. On the way back to the truck, I came across this little tight scene that's along the base of one of these redwood trees. It's just right where the trunk meets the ground. There's a bunch of cloves and a couple other plants and stuff in here, some twigs and sticks, and I thought it made for a really neat little tight-knit scene. So I set the camera up on it with my 150 millimeter lens, just kind of trying to focus in real tight on this one little scene here. And I think it makes for a nice composition. It's not the grand vista view of the trees that I stopped at this grove for this morning, but hey, you know, it's a joy to shoot. So, and I like these tight compositions just as much anyway. So the scene's in complete shade from this tree, which is good because the tree itself is backlit. It's getting hit by direct sunlight right now, which is giving me plenty of time to work on a composition without to worry about light coming in and ruining the exposure. But because it is pretty dark where it is right here, the exposure times are a little longer, and my proximity to the subject means I had to extend the bellows just a little bit. So I added a third stop for bellows extension. But all said and done, my exposure times, I shot one sheet of Provia 100F, and that was 26 seconds. And then I shot a sheet of Velvia, which was 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 second to be exact. So just 2 shots on this. I think that's all it really warrants. I'm not going to do backup shots for each. I think the 2 film emulsions back each other up. So if I get a nasty scratch in the Velvia shot or something, I have the Provia one. So, and considering how spicy Velvia 50 prices are getting, that's about all I'm gonna commit to it. So that's about all there is to it. It's a beautiful scene, lots of green. I metered off of the greens of the petals on these leaves down here, and then put those about minus half a stop from middle gray. So hopefully those exposures turn out. Full disclosure, there was one leaf that I tucked underneath another leaf just because it was sitting kind of in an awkward position. So I manipulated it just that little bit. Other than that, yeah, that's about all there is on this composition. I think I'm done now, taking my exposures. Feel pretty good about coming back to this location and checking it out this morning. Didn't quite get what I thought I was gonna get out of it, but I feel like I can check it off for this trip, you know. So I think one of the worst things is going home and then thinking later on, man, I should have stopped there again. So glad to say I got that out of the way. Now, on to the next location.
So here is the Velvia exposure. And I would say that this is probably it's a little overexposed. I'd say it's probably about a 1/3 to 2/3 stop overexposed compared to what I had in mind. So I was using these greens right here off of these petals to meter off of. And I said on the in-location video that I put those at half a stop below middle gray or middle green. They probably should have been slightly less than that. Probably more like a full stop. It probably would have been about right. Now I got plenty of detail. I don't think I lost much detail. It gets pretty bright right here. There's some like lighter color sticks, or that's a leaf, I should say. But there is still a little bit of detail there. It's pretty hot though. It's pushing it. So yeah, probably about half stop, I would say, over. Now, of course, I did take a Provia shot. Now that one turned out also pretty hot. They're just about identical. So at least I must have got my reciprocity adjustments correct because they're pretty identical. Now, the thing I noticed here is that this Velvia exposure is reflecting a lot more sky color. The leaves are a lot brighter here. And the Provia shot's not quite so bad. And I think there might be just ever slightly so much more detail in these bright spots in the foreground. So probably gonna end up going with the Provia shot on this one. As much of a joy as the Velvia is to look at, I just think that the Provia shot's a slightly better exposure just for details. So I think Provia is gonna win on this one. Compositionally, I don't know. I could have probably done with just a slightly less amount of foreground because this is just kind of just clutter. So I think if I was going to shoot this again, I probably would have moved my camera up just ever so slightly and put more space up here on the trunk. But I think I was actually fighting right here in the corner of the composition. It was a really bright spot I was trying to disinclude. So I may have been trapped in there. I can't quite remember, but ideally it would have been nice to have just, you know, a little less of this. Technically, I think it turned out great. Super sharp, lots of detail. I absolutely love all the detail in the bark and stuff. This is kind of a theme that kind of followed with me the whole trip. I really spent a lot of time looking at all this bark and like just the details on the side of the trees. Now, granted, I know a lot of these like really tight compositions aren't maybe necessarily what you would expect coming out of the Redwoods, especially when you got all these grand, massive trees and stuff, you know, so you expect to see photos of all the massive trees. A little bit of a spoiler, I did get a couple of those on this trip, but I actually really like these little intimate, tight scenes that I got to. They're just kind of like, these are the things that fascinated me as I was walking the trails, and yeah, they were a joy to shoot. But let me know what you think down in the comments. And I just want to say thanks for watching this week's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, it'd sure help me out if you'd hit that thumbs up button just down below. And maybe while you're down there, consider hitting that subscribe button if you want to see the rest of the videos from my Redwoods trip. Take care of yourself. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.
Not sure how it happened, but I bent just the actuator end of my cable release. Had to bend it back. Sticks sometimes. I guess that's why I carry an extra. Leave me some recommendations for a new one in the comments.